All right, here we're going to have a look at how to use Adobe Substance 3D Sampler to create an actual substance material out of a photograph. And generally, you want to do this with a photograph of a texture. The texture can be from nature, it can be building materials from like a wall or a piece of table or furniture. I'm going to use as my texture a rhubarb leaf. So I've got this photograph that I've taken here of a rhubarb leaf, and I want to generate a substance material out of this. So to start off, we open up Substance 3D Sampler, and we can always look here. We've got new project, quick start. We can open an old project. There's a learn tab, all these different things that we're used to from other Creative Cloud applications and Substance 3D apps. So when we look down below, it prompts us to create a new asset from a file or a quick action. And what we want to do today is to convert that image of rhubarb leaves to a material. But there's lots of other stuff in here. You can adjust images, you can convert images to embroidery, the really cool use of Substance 3D Sampler. But yeah, let's go ahead and click Convert Image to Material. So here we get the Convert Image to Material dialog, and it tells us create a material with all necessary channels from a single image. Substance 3D Sampler, it is very easy to use, which is very different from generating materials from other Substance 3D applications. In particular, Substance 3D Designer. It's just a node-based design system. I'm still getting the hang of it. But Sampler is very easy. So I'm going to drag that little JPEG right into there. There we go. So notice we can remove that or replace it if we want to from here, but that's the one I want to use. So we're going to keep it. So from here, you get a category. This is really nice. You can choose like what kind of type of material it's meant to represent. And if you look here, we've got everything from wood to stone, plastic, paper, ceramics, concrete, but we also have organic. And because this is from a rhubarb plant, I'm going to choose organic. Now for material type, you can choose whether it's a matte material or whether it's shiny. You can tell rhubarb leaves are quite shiny, so I'm going to choose shiny for my type of organic material and click Create. All right. So what happens here is it brings in the image. It performs an image to material conversion. And these are layers right here. So we've got our layers panel, we've got our properties panel. So every time we click on a layer, we can see the different properties for that layer. So what layers do we have right now? We have our input image. So we can see that there. We can rescan this if we want to. We could add a new input, but this is just fine. And then we have image to material, and this is an AI-powered layer. And here we can see organic. Like, yeah, we chose organic for this, and it's gone ahead and done this for us. And then we can see different geometry details. Here's our material type. So whether matte or shiny, roughness, delighting intensity, and so on. So we can adjust any of these per our likings. I think what I'm going to do is have a look at some of the quick actions here and some of the other elements we can see in the UI. So apart from layers and properties, again, we have our material source right here, and we can scroll through some of the different aspects of this that have been created for us. And over here is a 3D representation of our material. And you can change the mesh from right here. So maybe I want it to be a sphere. And then we can see how it wraps around a sphere. Or we could change it to another type of mesh, like this preview sphere rather. And this gives us lots of little like edges and things. We can see how it really would behave on an irregular sphere, right? So it's up to you exactly what you're going to be looking at this as. We can also go in here and enable path tracing, which is going to give us a more high quality render of the content. The lighting is going to look a lot more realistic. So, of course, this is a bit CPU intensive here, or GPU intensive. So be careful if you are using that you use it sparingly, or you keep an eye on whether things are getting kind of bogged down or not. So here's our project panel with an assets panel here. The only thing I would really do here is probably just right click on there and rename. So I'm going to call this rhubarb because that's what it is. And we get a nice little preview of our material right here. We hover over it and we get a big preview. Over here, we can add additional content. We can go off to browse 3D assets in the Creative Cloud desktop application. But we get quick actions here. So if we look at our quick actions, we've got a lot of different things here. We've got improve material scan. So one of these is tile and organic material, which this is. Now, if I switch back my mesh to, the cylinder here, we can see that it's not tiled very well, right? So this quick action, tile and organic material, might help us with this. Let's go ahead and choose that. And as that's running, we can look down below and you can tell it's running here. If we look down below, we can see a number of additional things. So importing textures, converting multi-angle images to materials. We have convert image to embroidery. So a lot of the stuff you saw when we first went in before we created this project. All right, so notice we have tiling here, and it also added a secondary equalizer to this. And any of these things, we can always toggle the visibility on or off. Inside of tiling, if I choose tiling here, we can actually adjust where it's sampling from. So it's a good idea to keep it sort of even. And it's not doing a super job. I still see a lot of tiles here. So let's go ahead and actually turn this off and the equalize, because there are additional ways we can go through and make this work. So if I go in and I say, add a layer right up top here, this is how you add layers manually. And of course you can search for different layer types. So we have things like auto tiling. We've got brightness and contrast. We have different ways of rendering things like coat and varnish, color variations, cracks, corrosion, all sorts of things that you would want to do to improve your materials. So if I look down here and I go down to M, there's another way of tiling called Make It Tile. So I'm going to choose that. I usually have pretty good luck with Make It Tile. And sure enough, there we go. There's Make It Tile. It looks a bit better. Let's go ahead and switch our mesh to sphere. I find sphere is one of the more useful ones here. And yeah, so it's looking okay. However, if we go to Make It Tile and we look, we've got a bunch of different sliders here. So we can adjust things like the smoothness, change the contrast, which you can see the effect of that gets rid of some of those more contrasted bits. And there's lots of other things here too that we can modify. Look at this threshold. You can see if I pull the threshold down, it isn't that great. So I'm going to find the sweet spot, which is somewhere around there for this particular image. And I think that's pretty good. And we can look at it, of course, with our path tracing option turned on. And then we can see more of an actual representation of this. You can also change the lighting for your materials. So if I change to light, notice we currently have Studio White Umbrella selected. There's lots of other things. So if we want it to look like it's outside somewhere, we could choose something like Mondarain 3, and we get a different look to everything. In addition, you could always choose to view the visibility of the HDR image being used for your lighting. So if I turn that on, then we've got the actual HDR image wrapped around 360 degrees around our content. You can also turn the ground plane on and off, turn shadows on and off, lots of different little options here. So what do I want to use? I don't know. Let's click on a few more of these until we find something that we like. And I actually kind of like the studio stuff. It's pretty neutral. So this is Studio Black Soft. Yeah, I like the lighting here. It's a lot of shadow and light. So I'm going to keep that. I'll just toggle that off for now. Okay, so there are other things we can do to improve it beyond just using Make It Tile. If I go up top here, we can add another layer, and we can add something like moss, dirt, or dust. I find adding dust, if I can go up to my D's here, there we go, dust. This can be very useful. So it's adding dust right there. And we can see right now, on and off, like that little bit of dust is actually, can be beneficial. It's actually changing the look of it. So down below in the properties panel, we can change the dust color. So make it darker. And I want it to be green so it blends in really nicely with my rhubarb plant. What this is going to do is it's going to basically help kind of fill in some of those edges and spots. So here's our color intensity. I could take it down, take it up. And duff rustness, sure. Particles density, up and down. Particle size. Dust distribution, right? So we could have it be global, in which case it goes over everything, which isn't that great. We have interstices, which kind of fills in any of the parts that are seen as low. Or we can choose normal, which uses the normal right here to perform dust. I'm going to keep it at interstices. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. We've got the spread here, so we can make it more or less severe as we go through here. Actually, I'm going to change the color of the dust as well. We've got our dust buildup, lots and lots of different stuff. So, and each one of these layers, of course, has different parameters we can change. So I'm going to make this a little more neutral, going over to the grays, but keeping it fairly dark. We could always change it to something like brown as well, since this is organic. Just anything green, yellow, brown probably is going to work. But there we go. That looks pretty good. And even with path tracing on, it looks pretty on point, right? So let's see, what else should we do? There are displacement options, right? So we can change the displacement and height scale and things like that. We've got our meshes here, so I could change it to cloth, which cloth works pretty good with leaves, actually. And you can see my material looks really, really nice. You can also change it to things like clothing. So here's a t-shirt that's made out of rhubarb. Pretty good, right? Here's a ladies' t-shirt. Here's a shoe. So if you want a shoe made out of rhubarb, there you go. But yeah, pretty good. I think this is probably my favorite look for this. I like to preview things a bit complex, so I can see all the little bits and pieces of my rhubarb. But yeah, there we go. It's done now. So if we want to use this somewhere else, because right now, what is it? It's just rhubarb. And it only exists inside of Substance 3D Sampler. So if I'm finished with this, and of course you could go in and add all sorts of additional things to this as different layers. But if I want to export this as an actual Substance 3D material, we can choose export from over on the side here. So the export option allows us to send it to Designer, Painter, or Stager for immediate use. But of course, we can also export it proper. So I'm going to click Export As. And from here, we can give it a name. So the material is going to be named rhubarb. And then it's going to be in my downloads. That's fine. And you could always change this if you wanted to. My material settings, now this is going to generate a SBSAR file. That's a Substance 3D asset file. But we could also change it to a designer file or any of these other file types. I'm going to keep it at Substance 3D Asset. The material model, you can change between Adobe Standard or OpenPBR. Now that we have access to OpenPBR in here, you're probably going to want to keep it at that, right? In terms of material types, Standard is going to work best in this case. And compression, I'll leave that up to the machine, right? And then you can say, well, what do you want to actually export as part of this material? I'm going to export everything. And when you're ready, you go ahead and click Export. It's going ahead and exporting our asset for us. And once that's finished, it'll let us know that it is complete. And we'll be able to find that asset inside of the location we specified in the export menu. And we'll be able to apply this Substance material to objects inside of other Substance 3D applications like Stager or Painter. We can also make use of it inside of Adobe Photoshop using the Materials panel in there, or even in Adobe Illustrator in the 3D and Materials panel in that application. So lots of different uses. Oh, I forgot. We can also use it now inside, of course, Adobe After Effects. So if we pull in a mesh in After Effects, we can apply this rhubarb material to our mesh. And as you can see, this export is taking a while, but I think I'll stop the video right here. Anyhow, that is just an example of how to transform a photographic image of a texture to a Substance 3D material inside of Adobe Substance 3D Sampler.